Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Darkest Corner. Today's tales are an international treat. Enjoy.
The haunted temple in Tibet. I had always dreamed of traveling to Tibet. The snow-dusted mountains, the ancient monasteries, the air so thin and sharp that every breath feels like a prayer. But dreams and reality rarely align, and I learned the hard way that some places are better left untouched. It started with a rumor. In a small tea house in Lhasa, I overheard two locals whispering about a temple high in the mountains, long abandoned and shunned even by the monks who once cared for it. They spoke of it as a cursed place, a temple built not for worship, but for something much darker. Their hushed voices warned that people who ventured there sometimes never returned, or came back. Different. I should have let it go, but curiosity is a dangerous thing. I had my camera, a journal, and a hunger for stories most tourists would never find. So I hired a guide, an older man named Dorji, who agreed reluctantly. His price was steep, not for the money, but for the risk. Even he would not stay past nightfall. The trek was grueling. We climbed narrow paths that hugged the cliffs, where one misstep could send you plunging into the fog-filled abyss below. The higher we went, the quieter the world became, as though the mountain itself was holding its breath. When the temple finally came into view, it looked less like a house of worship and more like a wound carved into the stone. Its walls blackened, its roof splintered, its gates chained yet hanging open, as if something had torn its way out. Dorja stopped. His eyes darted to the shadows that pooled at the entrance. He pressed a string of prayer beads into my hand. "Do not stay here when the sun falls," he said, his voice shaking. "The temple remembers." And then he left me. Inside, the air was colder than it should have been, colder than the mountain wind outside. My flashlight beam caught fragments of murals on the walls, paintings of wrathful deities with glaring eyes, their faces twisted in fury. Some of the paint looked too fresh, as though someone, or something, had been touching them up. At the center of the temple stood a shrine, its statue shattered, its offerings long rotted away. Yet the floor around it was scattered with bones. Some were animal, others weren't. The first sound came just after dusk. A low hum, like chanting, but distorted, as if echoing from under the earth. My chest tightened with each vibration. The shadows at the far end of the hall seemed to thicken, gathering like storm clouds. My flashlight flickered, sputtered, and died, leaving me in the dark. Then I heard the footsteps. They weren't hurried nor cautious. They moved with deliberate weight, as if something was circling me. My breath clouded the air, though I couldn't see my own hand in front of my face. The chanting grew louder, no longer muffled but rising all around me. Voices upon voices, ancient tongues repeating words I could not understand. I stumbled backward until my shoulder brushed stone. The mural beside me had changed. The deity's painted eyes no longer looked forward. They were staring at me. Its lips, once frozen in pigment, curved into a smile. And then came the hands. Cold, unseen, they clutched at my arms, my neck, my legs. I screamed, thrashing wildly, and for a brief instant the flashlight flared back to life. In its beam, I saw them, rows of monks in decayed robes, their faces hollow, their eyes sunk in black pits. They weren't painted on the wall anymore. They stood in the flesh, surrounding me. One stepped forward, his jaw unhinging as if to speak. From his throat poured not words, but the same thunderous chant, so loud it rattled the temple walls. I bolted. I don't remember how I got out, only that I ran until my lungs burned, until the cold night air stabbed me awake. Dorja was waiting at the base of the path, his face pale as the snow. He said nothing as I collapsed beside him. The next morning, when I dared look back, the temple was gone. Where it had stood, there was only rock and snow, as if it had never existed at all. I left Tibet soon after. My journal, my camera, everything I had taken with me that night, gone. I don't remember losing them, but they did not follow me home. Only one thing remained: the string of prayer beads Dorja had given me. And sometimes, at night, when the world is quiet and I close my eyes, I hear it again. The chanting, rising from the darkness, calling me back, the haunting of Dunmore Castle. Ireland has always called to me, the rolling green hills, the misty mornings, the legends whispered around every stone wall. But I never imagined that a simple visit to an old castle would turn into one of the most terrifying nights of my life. It was Dunmore Castle that caught my attention. Not one of the well-lit tourist attractions with velvet ropes and gift shops, but a ruin tucked deep in the countryside, its crumbling tower rising above the trees like a broken tooth. Locals warned me away, saying the place had a history that didn't like to be disturbed. But warnings and curiosity often walk hand in hand. The road there was narrow and winding, with fog creeping low across the fields. By the time I reached the castle gates, dusk had fallen. The stone walls loomed high, streaked with moss and shadow. I should have turned back then. Instead, I stepped inside. The interior was a skeleton of its former glory. Empty corridors with arches that seemed to stretch forever, staircases spiraling into darkness, and cold, drafty chambers where ivy claimed the walls. My footsteps echoed too loudly, as though the castle itself was listening. It was in the great hall where I first felt it, an unmistakable weight in the air, the kind that presses against your chest and makes every breath heavy. A broken table stood at the center, its wood blackened by age, and above it hung a rusted iron chandelier, swaying gently, though there was no wind. I raised my camera, but before I could snap the picture, I heard it. A woman's laughter. It wasn't joyful nor playful. It was sharp, brittle, and close. My skin crawled as the sound echoed off the stone walls. I called out, though my voice cracked in the empty chamber. There was no answer. Then came the footsteps. Light, deliberate, moving across the floor above me. I turned, staring at the staircase, waiting for someone, anyone, to appear. But the stairs remained empty, dust swirling as if stirred by invisible feet. I climbed slowly, each step groaning beneath my weight. The upper chambers were darker, colder. My flashlight flickered across faded tapestries that depicted knights, battles, and what looked like executions. Their colors were drained, but the eyes in those woven figures seemed alive, following me. At the end of the hall, I found a bedroom. The bed frame, half collapsed, still held tattered sheets, and sitting in the corner chair was a figure. A woman in a pale dress, her head bent low, hair spilling across her face. For one suspended heartbeat, I thought she was alive. I froze, whispering a greeting. Slowly, her head lifted. Her face was not flesh but a hollow mask of shadow, her eyes empty sockets that gleamed faintly in the dark. She opened her mouth, and the laughter spilled out again, this time louder, angrier, echoing through every corridor at once. The door slammed shut behind me. I lunged for it, clawing at the wood, but it wouldn't budge. The air grew icy, my breath coming out in clouds. Behind me, the chair scraped against the floor. I turned, and she was standing now, her body unnaturally tall, her limbs stretching as though the bones themselves were bending. She moved toward me, step by step, her laugh now breaking into whispers. Words I couldn't understand, though they chilled me to my core. I don't remember how I escaped. Only fragments remain. The sound of shattering glass, the feeling of stone under my palms as I crawled, the cold night air slamming into me as I stumbled back into the courtyard. When I looked up at the castle from outside, the windows blazed with light. Not electric, but candlelight. Hundreds of flickering flames in rooms that had been abandoned for centuries. And in the highest tower, I saw her silhouette, watching me. The next morning, I returned with a local villager I'd befriended at the inn. But when we reached the site, the castle was dark and silent. No lights, no laughter, no sign of life at all. Only dust, ruin, and silence. They say Dunmore Castle was once home to a noble family, until betrayal and bloodshed tore it apart. The lady of the castle was said to have gone mad after witnessing the slaughter of her children. Some believe her spirit still lingers, unable to leave the halls where she lost everything. I don't know what I saw that night. But even now, when I close my eyes, I hear her laughter, echoing across stone walls, calling me back to a place I swore I would never return.